Hello and welcome to another episode of Into the Afroverse. I'm your host, William Jones, and this is where we're taking Black folks into the future. If you were listening last week, we started off with a great interview talking to Mr. David Crownson, the creator of Harriet Tubman, Demon Slayer. And we got so into the conversation that the time flew on us, and David was gracious enough to come back and join us to finish up this epic story of how he came up with the concept, how he bounced back from losing a part in a major blockbuster film, and how he arrived at Harriet Tubman, Demon Slayer. So with that, let's welcome him back. David Crownson, how you doing today?
I'm good.
Excellent. So once again, man, thank you for coming back and joining us once again on Into the Afroverse here on 1450 AM, 95.9 FM. And like I said, we were talking last week and you just had this amazing story of how you were able to bounce back from, we'll just say disappointment, to create this story of Harriet Tubman and Demon Slayer. And one of the things that you had mentioned was in telling this story, how you had gotten some positive feedback, but I wanted to speak to you about the pushback. But before we get to that, how can folks find you and how can they purchase the book?
You can find me on Instagram at @Crownson. You can also follow me at what's it called? You can follow like all developments with my company at Kingwood Comics and at Harriet Tubman _ Demon Slayer on Instagram as well. And for everything else, you can just follow me at www.kingwoodcomics.com. That's also where you can purchase Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer.
Excellent. And so you were talking about, after you came up with this concept and began to create the book, how many folks began to embrace it, but you also talked about how some people began to push back. Can you speak to that, please?
Yeah, man. Like I was kind of shocked because I thought this is a fun thing, and also no one had the same energy for Abraham Lincoln.
Right.
And also in Asian cultures, they do this type of stuff with their heroes all the time. So I was like, okay, like of course, like we're gonna embrace, but like I think to empathize and have compassion about it, there hadn't been any Harriet Tubman content at all.
Right.
When I was releasing this, I think the only Harriet Tubman content, and it was done extremely distastefully. I think someone made like a porn parody.
Really?
Yeah. It was like a porn parody of Harriet Tubman.
Jeez.
Someone made it, and it was like it was all over the internet. People were mad, people were angry. So people, like rightfully so, were very protective of Harriet Tubman.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, I'm trying to celebrate her story. I'm not trying to trivialize the story. He was like, nah, you're just trying to make jokes and like be disrespectful. But then so it was like a 50, I'm gonna say 50-50. It was like maybe a 60-40 split. But it's still a lot. So I was kind of nervous. But then I think when the book came out and people read it and saw, oh, this dude's not trying to, talk down or make fun of this story. He's trying to, like, for me, in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm telling a serious biopic.
Right.
For me, at least.
Right.
But just having some fun with it.
And now, how were you able to do that? How were you able to walk that line between telling the story you wanted to tell, taking this supernatural twist on a historical figure, and at the same time being respectful of her legacy, as well as the enslavement of African people?
Doing research and also um, being really sensitive in the writing of it, and also before even adding the fantastical stuff, just trying to find a way they organically fit.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, what can I say about werewolves in this world? What can I say about um, uh, like like being a slave master is a demonic thing,
Yes.
and it is a like that's evil. Um, like what can I say about that? That also can be a metaphor, or hey, not be a metaphor, where like there's a fun thing, or not fun, but like it's something I thought was interesting, where these slave masters don't know about vampires or demons.
Hmm.
Um, so like there's like a quote in the book where someone asks Harriet, he's like, "Hey, what's scarier? What's the difference between these white vampires that are hunting us and these slave masters who whip us?" And Harriet just says like the vampires have sharper teeth.
Wow. That's
You
that's
know,
that's powerful. I
you
like
know,
that.
yeah, and that's basically like how like I went about it. But also, I'm like, there are moments in the research of doing Harriet that Harriet actually had lots of levity as a person,
Right.
and she was jovial. Yes, she was extremely serious in all business because she had to in that world. But um, this is a three-dimensional person, so I think you have to put a three-dimensional experience into something. Like you can't play like the same note.
Certainly.
Um, Also, like I like to have fun with whatever story I'm telling, and have there be like an air of comedy
Right.
in it, but still keep the stakes high and the drama high.
Right.
Uh, yeah, so I think, and but also like not stressing out too much about what, because ultimately like you can't please everybody.
Exactly.
Like someone might say, "Oh, it's too serious," or it's too funny, or or I don't like how this part looks. Like there was one guy who was really coming after me on Facebook, and he was cursing me out, talking about how bad the comic book was, and I said, "Hey, did you read it?" And he said no, and I'm like, okay, well maybe you should read it first.
Right.
He said, I'm not giving my hard earned money to you. And I'm like, sir, it is $3 on like actually yeah, it was $3 on like Comixology.
Right.
I'm like, sir, it is $3. So please go ahead, and he was like, all right, fine. And then he read it and he came back. He's like, that was a fun book to read. I really enjoyed
Wow.
it. I
That's
still
awesome.
think, yeah, he said all that, and then he was like, I still think you're a corny person though. And I'm like, like, so I was like, yo, fine, whatever. Like, let people like
Right.
have their thing,
Right. And,
you
and and
know.
really, and that's what it's about when you're telling the story. You're telling the story you want to tell, that you want to see. And there's an audience for it. Apparently. I mean, I'm looking at the success that you're having, been seeing the feedback, and I will tell folks out there that this is a good book. Make sure you get a copy of it. So you were talking about the research that you were doing for Harriet Tubman, and you mentioned that you found that there was some levity to her character. Was there anything else that you discovered about her that surprised you, or maybe something that many people are not aware of when it comes to her personal story?
Again, the funny, like the comedy, is a big thing, because
Mhm.
finding out that Harriet uh, cracked jokes, or because I don't know, whenever like even like in history, like as a kid, when they mention Harriet Tubman, I think of this dark skinned, serious,
Right,
badass, no nonsense having black woman
right,
who is serious and badass, and that is it. There
right,
is nothing deep or to her. She is just a serious, unattractive black woman.
right.
But then, like, there's other pictures you see, and Harriet Tubman's a she's petite, and she's an attractive woman. They never show her as being like desirable. Like there are pictures that are coming out now
Right.
of Harriet when she's like in her 30s, and she's not an ugly woman. But
Interesting.
like they keep showing us this picture of Harriet Tubman when she's like 90, and they're
Right.
like, that's the woman who did all this. Um, but also going back to the comedy, there's this story of Harriet when she's leading this family to freedom, and she's leading this family to, I think, Canada,
Hmm.
and the family, the father, it was a father, his wife, and his daughter, and that's like I took this aesthetic to use for the Edgefields in my book,
Okay.
and the father was having anxiety. He was having a panic attack, but like this is the 1800s, that he doesn't know he's having a panic attack. He's just like really getting scared thinking about this journey, thinking he made a mistake leaving because his family, his daughters were allowed to sleep in the house, and they were allowed to have shoes. Like slaves weren't allowed to have shoes.
Right.
And they were allowed to have shoes, which is a big deal. That's like getting a big promotion at your job for double the pay.
Gotcha.
And he's thinking, "Oh, I made a huge mistake leaving," and he started to have a panic attack. So this guy's having a panic attack, and Harriet Tubman's walking up to him. And Harriet Tubman is known for like, yeah, and this is a stressful time because
Right.
Harriet Tubman's identity has leaked. Everyone knows her full government name, and like knows that it is a female Negro. And Harriet matches this description. Like just looking at and there's also one cool thing. There's Harriet is really short for a woman in this
Yes.
time.
Yes.
So if they see 4'11" female Negro, adult female Negro,
Right.
uh, they know automatically that's Harriet Tubman.
Right.
Um, so a lot of so the stress is high. So Harriet Tubman's walking up to this man while he's having an anxiety attack, and everyone's thinking, "Oh man, Harriet's gonna shoot this man. Oh no!" So he walks up, and Harriet puts her hands on his shoulders. No one knows what she said to him,
Hmm.
but she took a minute to listen to him and talk to him, and he started to laugh.
Wow.
Harriet Tubman made him laugh and made him like forget about his anxiety and fear for like a couple of minutes, and then just took on like a more motherly tone with him, and then they kept it moving, and I just thought, oh, like that's a hero.
Yes.
That's who I'm going to make this book about. In the
Excellent.
face of all this danger and in the face of the ultimate adversity, the ultimate demon, this woman made time to crack a joke and just put someone at ease, and that's what being a hero is. It's who are you going to be in the face of the ultimate uncertainty. So
Excellent.
yeah, that's where I wanted to go as far as like making this book and making it um making like not knowing about Harriet being funny,
Right.
also not knowing about that the huge like effect it had. I mean, there's other people that were leading slaves to freedom,
Hmm.
but Harriet kind of inspired it. I think she was like one of the first ones to inspire it and make people want to do it. So she was considered the most dangerous woman alive.
Excellent. Excellent. And once again, if you're joining us, this is Into the Afroverse. And I'm your host, William Jones. And this is part two of our conversation with Mr. David Crownson. Real quick, are there any other historical figures that you are dealing with in addition to Harriet Tubman, or is it going to be a separate book? Are there any other folks that you're looking at bringing into the story?
Yeah, there's going to be Abraham Lincoln's going to make an appearance. He is not going to be the Abraham Lincoln that is from the Spielberg movies.
Okay.
John Brown, this white man who is known for killing uh, slave masters and freeing slaves. He's going to show up. Um, there's also hold on.
Hmm.
There's I'm gonna have what man I'm blanking on. I have this down in my notes.
Right.
There's two people, historical figures. I forgot their names, but they're also going to be in the book. There's one lady who basically helped free slaves by putting them in like coffins, like funeral like coffins,
Right.
um, to lead them to freedom. Like she's gonna have a fun team up. There's also Henry Box Brown.
Yes.
Henry Box Brown was basically, he was a slave who mailed himself to freedom,
That's correct.
and
Yes.
but like what people don't know about him is that he mailed himself to freedom, but he was taken in by a magician who, and this is a true story.
Right.
This magician basically took him in and is like, I'm going to teach you all about my magic. This David Copperfield type of guy.
Right.
And he learned magic.
That is incredible. Wow. That's incredible. And once again, this great story. Can you tell us one more time, how can we find you and where can we purchase this comic?
Oh, you can go to Harriet Tubman Demons. Oh, you can go to you can go to kingwoodcomics.com to purchase Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer, uh the first half of this long story arc. It's 250 pages. It's volume one. It has the first 6 issues in it, and it's 200. Again, it's 250 pages of nonstop action and fun. Great artist, great team. Cortland Ellis, Joey Vasquez. So many great people are on this book. Um, and yeah, go to www.kingwoodcomics.com and you can order it.
Excellent. And I understand that Hollywood is responding to Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer. What's next for you and this property?
Yeah, basically, I got approached by um, Sebastian Jones, and Sebastian Jones is the founder of Stranger Comics, and he actually partnered with Prentice Penny. Prentice Penny, who is the co-creator, showrunner, executive producer, writer, director of Insecure on HBO, and that's his partner, producing partner. And they were starting like a new like development section in Prentice's company to produce genre action um, or comic book adapted material through what's it called? Through his new deal over at Disney. So
Excellent.
he, yeah. So basically, they approached me, and I'm a big fan of Prentice, and we had a good meeting, and I just uh, I've had, not trying to brag, I've had people from Hollywood approach me about making this into a movie, a TV show, who've all tried to, who were all great, but Prentice, it just felt right. It felt like he's a big fan of the story, and he wanted to just kind of engage and focus and hone in on the story aspects of this. And he's like, hey, we can easily make like the big budget action stuff look cool and great, but I just want to focus on the like story and like the hero's journey, like very very Star Wars focused on this. Like let's focus on the intimacy parts of it, and then like we will make a great show. So I was just all in, and yeah, that's been going on for about a year, and can't say too much
Right.
about it. All I can say is that Prentice Penny is the executive producer on it, and we found a great showrunner writer who will probably will announce who that is sometime in September, I want to say, and we'll probably announce where the show will be. Probably it'll probably end up being well, it'll be so since Prentice's deal works through Disney, it'll show up somewhere on not probably not on Disney Plus, but Disney owns a multitude of things now, like Hulu and
Right.
uh, FX. They own things like that. So yeah, we'll probably announce, sometime in the near future where it'll have a home at, and we'll keep it going.
Well, congratulations to you. Excellent. I'm looking forward to it coming to the big screen, small screen, whatever the case might be. Now, as we start to wrap up, because believe it or not, once again, with this great conversation, the time is flying. Here in Into the Afroverse, we always talk about the future of Black folks and the kind of world we want to create. How do you see Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer contributing to a more positive future where, Black folk can see themselves positively, trying to build this future for ourselves where we are truly liberated, truly free? What role do you see Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer playing and bringing this to life?
I see it that because growing up watching different slave movies as a kid and watching us get beaten up, killed, murdered in movies, like that, I think that kind of did something to my self-esteem a little bit as a kid.
Right.
But see, and like now, like what's great is, okay, in my comic book, none of that stuff happens. In my comic book, you almost exclusively always see either a slave master getting beaten up or a racist getting hurt, and Black people just overcoming and being conquerors and overcomers in these stories. So I think like that paradigm like shift of, instead of us being victims, we're heroes. Not to say like we weren't heroes in other movies, but it was just like the imagery was just overbearing of us being shot, killed, murdered, tortured. That doesn't happen in Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer. We do the ass kicking.
Excellent. Well, folks, you heard it. So many of us complain about the slave movies and say, not another slave movie, not another slave story. We're tired of, the white savior that is oftentimes depicted in these types of films. So here you have something that speaks to you and what you want. And once again, we vote with our dollars. So make sure you're getting out to support this young man and his work, Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer. Any final words?
Everyone, follow me at D Crownson on Instagram and Twitter. The Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer page, there might be a name change. They'll probably change just to Kingwood Comics, but still follow it anyway. But follow me. And if you're in the San Diego area next weekend, I'm doing San Diego Comic-Con. I'll be having a book signing there.
Excellent. Well, once again, David, I can't say it enough. Thank you so much for taking the time out to join us for 2 parts of this conversation. And I wish you all a success. Now, when this thing breaks out and you got the films coming out and so forth, don't forget about us. I want you to come back and we can do something around, celebrating it being aired on television, big screen, whatever the case might be. So I definitely would love to have you come back. And I'm sure the listeners out there would love to have you come back as well. So
of course.
Yes. Awesome. So once again, this is Into the Afroverse with your host, William Jones, on 1450 AM, 95.9 FM, where information is power. And I'd also like to thank Mr. Duke Productions for producing today's episode. Take care, David. Thanks again for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll appreciate it.
All right. Have a good one.